Welcome to Plot Twist, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. The film begins after 2 years of the Avengers Events movie. Steve is settled in his new life, working with a company. He is training, and there is a person training and running beside him, so they get to know each other. We learn that this person is named Sam Nelson, who works in veteran affairs, and you could say he's a very strong warrior. The important thing is that after getting to know Steve, he starts to leave because he received a message from SHIELD requesting him for a new mission. He meets Natasha and they walk together. When they reach the rest of the team, they learn that the current mission is to retrieve a satellite launch ship belonging to SHIELD. On the ship are 25 of the most dangerous criminals, led by a man named John Patrick. Of course, they are the ones who hijacked the ship and held many hostages inside, all of whom are scientists and technicians, and a lone officer named Casper. So Steve immediately starts making a plan, saying that he will stop John Patrick himself. Natasha's role is to stop the ship's engine, and Romulo, who is an officer with them in the team, will free the hostages. They actually reach the ship, and Steve starts fighting everyone there. Natasha goes to stop the engine as agreed, and Romulo reaches the hostage location and frees them. The mission ends, but Natasha is not in the place where they agreed to meet after completing the mission. John Patrick comes and starts fighting with Steve until they throw Steve onto a ship door, breaking it and continue hitting him until he passes out. Meanwhile, Natasha is inside the office with the broken door, taking files from there. Steve realizes that the real purpose of the mission wasn't to free the hostages or anything, but he doesn't have time to talk to her because Patrick wakes up and throws a bomb at them, so they run and hide. Fortunately, the bomb doesn't hit them. When they finish the mission, they return to SHIELD. There, Steve goes to Nick Fury and is very angry, telling him that all team members should know the missions and shouldn't be treated differently. Each should be assigned a separate task, as this will prevent them from trusting each other completely. Nick Fury tries to calm him down, saying it was just a simple side mission, so he assigned it to Natasha. Later, Fury shows him a new project they are working on called Inside. This project involves 3 very large hovercrafts directed by satellite, equipped with very advanced weapons that can kill 1,000 people in just 1 minute. But Steve is not convinced by the project and tells Fury that such a project will surely scare people, not protect them, and immediately leaves. Then Steve goes to a museum, which is dedicated to Steve, his old team, and their achievements during the war. Among the people the museum talks about is his friend Bucky. Steve remembers him and feels very sad because he also remembers the moment of Bucky's death when he fell from the train. Steve also sees a video of Carter talking about him, his team, and their achievements. So he remembers her too and feels even sadder. He decides to visit her because she is still alive but has aged significantly. He sees pictures of her and her family, and he is there with her. He talks to her, and she tells him that she lived her life but regrets that he wasn't with her. During their conversation, Carter coughs heavily, so Steve gets up to get her water, and when he returns to sit down, Carter is surprised as if seeing him for the first time and says, "You've returned, Steve," making him realize she has Alzheimer's. He feels very sad for her and leaves quietly. Later, we move to Fury in his office, trying the flash drive he got from Natasha, which contains copies of the files from the ship. But unfortunately, the flash drive doesn't work. Then Pierce, one of the officials at SHIELD, comes to him, and Fury asks him to postpone the Inside project, and he agrees. After that, Fury moves in his car but is stopped by police cars. People get out and start shooting at him, and he realizes they aren't police. Fortunately, his car is armored, so he isn't hit by any bullets and manages to escape from them. But his joy doesn't last because, after escaping, he encounters a masked person who throws a bomb at him, flipping the car completely. The person approaches the car to finish Fury off but doesn't find him, as Fury has successfully escaped. We return to Steve, who has gone back to his home after visiting Carter, and he meets his neighbor there named Kate. They talk for a while, and Kate tells him that he left his recorder on, which worries Steve, making him feel that someone is inside. He enters through the window only to find Nick Fury inside the house. Nick tells him that someone attacked him. S.H.I.E.L.D. has been breached, warns Rania, and there are probably listening devices on the phones. He doesn't trust anyone but Steve. Before Nick can finish his words, a bullet hits him. Steve rushes to him, and Nick quickly tells him that he doesn't trust anyone but him, giving him the flash drive with the files. With the sound of gunfire, Kate enters with a gun, revealing that she is an agent placed by Fury to protect Steve if anything happened. Steve sees someone running, so he runs after him. It's the same person who was chasing Fury and wanted to kill him, still wearing the mask with a metal hand. He is so fast and strong that Steve can't catch him. Steve tries to hit him with his shield, but he catches it with one hand and throws it back at Steve with ease, which has never happened before, then escapes. Afterwards, Steve goes to the hospital where Fury was taken, but his condition is very critical, and the doctors try everything to save him, but unfortunately, it's too late, and he dies. Steve is called to SHIELD, but before going, he hides the flash drive in a vending machine at the hospital. He does this because he doesn't trust anyone, as Fury told him. There, he meets Pierce, who shows him a video of Patrick, the one who hijacked the ship. In the video, Patrick confesses that someone incited him to hijack the ship, and that the ransom money was transferred to 17 different accounts, all fake. And one of them is in the name of Jacob Fitch, who died 6 years ago. But the strange part is that the address is the same as Nick Fury's mother's house, indicating that Nick was behind all this and was likely killed due to a dispute over the money distribution. Pierce asks Steve why Nick Fury was with him yesterday, but Steve doesn't give a clear answer, saying the last thing Fury told him was that he didn't trust anyone. Steve then leaves Pierce and gets into the elevator to leave, but Romulo and his team enter with him, and Steve senses they are planning something wrong. So he asks them before the elevator moves if anyone wants to get off, but no one approaches. The elevator starts moving, and the fight begins inside. Steve begins to take them all down and jumps out of the elevator. He gets on his motorcycle and tries to escape, but a plane starts shooting at him. However, he manages to dodge its attacks. After a huge battle, he succeeds in taking it down and escapes. At this point, Pierce issues an order to arrest Steve, considering him an enemy of Sarbi LD in the entire country because all the attacks were from Sarbi LD. They felt Steve was hiding something from them, and there's another plot we'll learn about later. Steve reaches the hospital, trying to disguise himself to retrieve the flash drive without being noticed, but unfortunately, he doesn't find it. He sees Natasha, who got there before him and took the flash drive. He stops her and asks if she knew Nick was behind the ship's hijacking. She tells him yes, he did it to find an excuse to infiltrate the ship and get what he wanted. She also tells him she knows the person who killed Nick Fury, a very dangerous criminal known as the Winter Soldier. Meanwhile, Pierce is in a meeting with the leaders who request to initiate the Insight Project. Steve and his team try to access the flash drive, but it's protected by an AI system. They locate coordinates in New Jersey and discover it's the same place Steve used to train. Steve notices a building is out of place, tries to move it, and succeeds. It turns out to be a door leading to a room filled with equipment. They use the flash drive, and it reveals information about Dr. Zola, whom we discussed earlier. Steve discovers that Hydra, which he thought was destroyed, never disappeared. It infiltrated SHIELD and formed many secret groups. The Insight Project is just the beginning of Hydra's return. At this moment, a missile from SHIELD heads towards them, but Steve takes Natasha underground, avoiding the explosion. We then switch to Pierce at his home meeting the Winter Soldier, telling him their deadline is very tight and they must start their mission quickly. At the same time, Steve and Natasha reach Sam Wilson to hide. While talking, they discover that Officer Casper, whom they saved from the ship, is involved with Hydra. They try to find a way to reach him without being exposed and ask Sam for help. Sam agrees and brings Casper to Steve. Steve asks about the algorithm Dr. Zola created for the Insight Project. Casper refuses to reveal anything, so Natasha pushes him off a building, but Sam catches him easily because he's wearing wings that allow him to fly. They bring him back up, and it turns out Steve gave Sam those wings as part of a plan to scare Casper. Casper gets frightened and confesses everything, revealing that the algorithm is a program that identifies targets for the planes to attack, including Steve, Natasha, and Bruce Banner, the Hulk. It also targets anyone who might threaten Hydra. After eliminating these targets, they will attack civilians as part of the Insight Project. Without much talk, they take Casper and head to SHIELD to stop the project. But the Winter Soldier attacks again and kills Casper. A battle ensues between the Winter Soldier and his men against Steve, Sam, and Natasha. Eventually, the Winter Soldier's mask falls off, and Steve is shocked to see it's Bucky, his friend who fell from the train. But Bucky doesn't remember anything, not even Steve, and escapes. Later, SHIELD forces arrive and arrest Steve, Sam, and Natasha. However, among the forces is Nick Fury's assistant, who helps them escape, and they head straight to Nick Fury, who is still alive but hiding in a remote location to avoid the Winter Soldier. Fury explains that after Bucky fell from the train, Hydra soldiers found him, implanted a tracking device, and erased his memory. They also did many things to make him like the super soldiers, freezing him just like they did with Steve. Fury gives them 3 chips to install in the Insight Project's helicarriers. These chips will make the helicarriers target each other instead of their intended targets. The team heads to SHIELD, and Steve goes to the communication room, announcing that SHIELD has been infiltrated by Hydra, with Pierce and Rumlow among them. He asks everyone not to launch the helicarriers as it would cause millions of deaths. Trusting Steve, they agree. Meanwhile, Pierce tries to activate the helicarriers, but they refuse. Rumlow decides to kill them, and a fight breaks out. Amidst the chaos, Rumlow activates the helicarriers himself. Steve and Sam quickly move to install the chips, while Pierce meets with council members to convince them of their actions. When they don't agree, he decides to kill one of them. But Natasha, disguised, attacks Pierce before he can harm anyone, taking down all the guards in the office. She plans to release all SHIELD in Hydra information, but first needs to disable the firewall. To do this, she needs the approval of 2 high-ranking officials. At this moment, Nick Fury arrives, having had all his credentials revoked by Pierce, but he doesn't care, and manages to disable the encryption. Meanwhile, Steve installs a chip in one of the 3 helicarriers, and Sam successfully installs a chip in another. They manage to, but then the Winter Soldier, or Bucky, arrives and attacks Sam, damaging his wings. Bucky and Steve get on a hovercraft and start fighting each other. Steve tries to avoid hitting Bucky, thinking to himself, but Bucky doesn't listen at all. The problem is that Steve doesn't want to hit him because he's his friend and lifelong companion, so he quickly dodges him. Steve places the last chip in the hovercraft, causing it to malfunction. Bucky gets trapped between the wreckage, and Steve saves him. Steve then throws his shield to Bucky, telling him he won't hurt or kill him. However, Bucky continues to fight until the platform Steve is standing on collapses and he falls into the water. In the end, Bucky jumps in after him and saves him at the last moment, pulling him to the shore before leaving him. Later, Nick Fury burns his house and decides to live under a new identity. Most of the Hydra agents are arrested. After the night ends, Nick Fury meets Steve and Sam, greets them, and informs them that he will be working in secret from now on. Natasha arrives and gives Steve a file on Bucky because Steve wants to find and help him. The last thing we see is that the Hydra organization hasn't fallen. We see a man named Strucker with a doctor conducting experiments using Loki's scepter. Strucker tells the doctor that Hydra has many organizations and agents around the world that will keep Captain America busy while they complete their research. Finally, they show us 2 siblings, twins who were experimented on and now have superpowers. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, make sure to subscribe for more awesome content. Thanks for watching, and I'll